At 02:15 hours local time, a Ukrainian FP-2 attack drone tipped its nose down and drove straight into a fuel tanker stalled on the bridge at Armiansk. It had crossed roughly 124 miles of occupied ground to get there. Ahead of that tanker and behind it, packed onto a single two-lane span, sat nearly 50 trucks, diesel, grad rockets, and artillery shells, bumper to bumper with nowhere to go. The tanker split and caught, and the diesel went up in a column of fire more than 300 feet tall, bright enough to be seen for miles across the flat Crimean approaches. That was the first hit. 4 more were already in the air. The convoy was the lifeblood of an entire frontline sector. Fuel to move armor, shells to feed the guns, rockets and drone gear to keep the south supplied. A week of one sector's logistics rolling on wheels. And all of it had funneled onto this one crossing at Armiansk, in the far north of Crimea, because it was the last road-capable route left into the peninsula. It had not always been the only road. Hours earlier, the shorter crossing, the Chonhar bridge, the fast artery Russia's supply schedules were built around, had stopped being a road at all. Ukrainian drones had punched its span down into the water below, and the moment Chonhar dropped, every truck bound for the southern front had exactly one option: reroute west to Armiansk. Ukraine knew that before the Russians did. This was the part that made it work. Ukraine did not chase 50 trucks across Crimea. It broke one bridge and let the map do the rest. The trucks came on their own. Fuel tankers from the depots, ammunition carriers from inland storage, a load of grad rockets, a truck packed with FPV drones and coils of fiber optic cable. They rolled toward the one crossing left, and they committed to it. The lead vehicles pushed out onto the span. The ones behind followed, closing up, until the whole column was strung across the bridge and the approach, a kilometer of trucks with a river on both sides and no room to turn. The drivers thought Armiansk was the safe way around. To them, Chonhar was the loss, and this was the fallback, the crossing that still worked. What none of them understood was that the fallback had been the target all along. Ukraine was not improvising around a broken bridge. It had chosen which bridge to break, precisely so the trucks would collect themselves here, on this span, where a loaded column could neither reverse out nor spread apart. The lead truck was already well onto the bridge when everything stopped. Nothing moved. Behind it, back across the span and down the approach, the road was solid. And around all of it, Russia's air defenses were already in place, not to guard a convoy, but to guard the bridge. Within seconds, those same systems would face a choice no one had built them to make: cover the crossing or cover the column stacked on top of it. They could not do both. The first drones to break the horizon were not aimed at the trucks at all. 8 of them came in low from a single bearing, holding just above the water, and every one was pointed at the bridge itself. They showed up on Russian screens a full 30 to 40 seconds ahead of anything else, and for those 30 seconds, the defense had a clean, simple problem to solve. It was a low-altitude surveillance radar, a Podlet K1 sitting back from the crossing, that caught them first. The Podlet carried no weapons of its own. Its only job was to find what taller radars lost in the ground clutter and hand the picture to the systems that could kill. Within seconds, it had passed 8 tracks to the gun line at the bridge and to the Pantsir-S1. The Pantsir-S1 is a short-range point defense system, the last hard ring around a high-value site. Missiles and a pair of autocannons on one vehicle, built to swat exactly this kind of low, slow, incoming threat. On paper, it is a serious problem for a drone. Its fire control can track and guide up to 4 missiles at once, 4 separate kills in flight, all at the same time. Against a handful of targets, that is more than enough. But the Pantsir met more than a handful. It met 8 drones on the bridge bearing, with 10 more about to appear on a second, and only 4 guidance channels to answer all of it. Picture a kitchen with exactly 4 burners on the line. When 4 orders come in, the line is fast, clean, everything plated at once. Send in a dozen at once and the burners don't move any faster. They can only cook 4 at a time, and the rest of the tickets simply sit on the rail, waiting for a burner to open up. The Pantsir's 4 channels were those 4 burners. The crew assigned them to the nearest threats and started killing. And the kills came. Clean intercepts, drones dropping short of the span. But every drone it was not tracking flew on, unopposed, for as long as it took to fire, reload, and reacquire. The tickets on the rail didn't wait patiently. They kept flying. And that reload cycle is where the math turned. From the moment a channel opened up, the crew needed several seconds to slew onto the next target, lock, and launch. A drone crossing at roughly 60 miles an hour covers around 130 feet in every one of those seconds. So each engagement, each burner clearing and taking the next ticket, bought the surviving drones another few hundred feet of free travel toward the bridge. The Pantsir fired accurately. It hit what it aimed at. But it was solving the problem 4 targets at a time, while the problem arrived 8 and 10 at a time. And the gap between those two numbers was measured in bridge the drones were allowed to close. By the time the gun line had worked through the first bearing, it had spent most of its ready missiles doing it. And that was the moment the second group came up on the screen. 10 more drones came up on a second bearing, out of the north, behind the tail of the column. And here Russia had a weapon waiting, one that had already worked once, seconds earlier. An R-330Zh Zhitel electronic warfare vehicle had been broadcasting the moment the first radar warning went out. It doesn't fire anything. It jams, floods the satellite navigation band with noise, so a drone flying on GPS loses its fix and drifts off course. And it had caught one of the bridge drones cleanly. The FP2 wandered 40 feet off its programmed line and buried itself in open ground short of the span. A real kill, one the Zhitel crew would never even see confirmed. For a moment, the jammer looked like the answer to the whole northern wave. It wasn't, and this is where the night turned. The 10 drones coming for the convoy were not flying on GPS in the stretch that mattered. They were terminal control variants. For the final 2 miles, a human operator took the stick, watching a live optical feed from the drone's nose and steering by eye. No satellite fix in the loop at all. The Zhitel shifted their navigation solution by 50 feet, exactly as designed, and a pilot watching a fuel tanker swell up to fill his screen corrected that 50 feet by hand in under a second. The jammer was blind to the only guidance it was facing. Russia had staked the northern approach on a weapon that could not touch what was actually coming. That left one system between the convoy and the drones, a Tor-M2, halted behind the column. The Tor-M2 is a short-range missile system built for exactly this: low, fast, point defense, all self-contained on one tracked vehicle. On paper, it is quick and lethal. It can cycle a fresh engagement every few seconds, and its first intercepts that night were textbook. Drones knocked down clean, one after another. The problem was never the Tor's speed. It was a number stamped into the system's design, a minimum engagement altitude of roughly 65 feet. Below that floor, the seeker starts losing its target in the clutter of the ground itself. Think of a tall boxer with a long reach. At range, nobody can touch him. The reach is a wall. But let a shorter fighter slip inside that reach, get in close under his arms, and every advantage the tall man had turns to nothing. He can't fold his punches back far enough to land them. The drones did exactly that. They came in under the Tor's reach, hugging the road surface, inside the one distance where all that speed and precision had nothing to bite. Watch the last attempt. The Tor had 9 seconds between clearing a bridge drone and the first convoy drone entering its range. It cycled north, locked the nearest inbound FP2, and fired. The missile tracked for 2.5 seconds. Then the drone dropped below 65 feet, the seeker lost it against the road, and the interceptor passed 6 feet over its back and self-destructed behind it. The closest thing to a 6th kill all night, and it missed by the height of a truck. There would be no second try. 5 convoy drones were already inside terminal range, under every gun that could have stopped them, and the operators were lining up their tankers. 3 of the bridge drones struck first, in sequence. Not the middle of the span, the joints. Entry connection, center deck, exit connection. The delayed fuses did what they were built to do. punch through the surface, then fire inside the structural steel, not in open air. The center dropped, the entry cracked, the far end separated. In 3 detonations, the road ahead of the column simply ended. Now the trap was closed for good. The lead trucks had no bridge left in front of them. The column behind was solid, bumper to bumper, a kilometer deep. No vehicle could go forward, none could reverse. 50 trucks sat locked in place on a burning crossing, and the 5 terminal drones came down into them, one at a time. The first operator steered onto a tanker in the center of the span. On his screen, the cylinder filled the frame. 3 seconds of steady crosshair. Impact. Diesel ignited. A wall of flame climbing off the bridge, throwing heat into the vehicles pressed in on either side. The second FP2 hit a tanker 2 trucks ahead. The tank split. Burning diesel flooded across the deck and ran downhill toward the next vehicles in line. The third found an ammunition truck loaded with 152mm shells. For 4 seconds, nothing. No fireball, no flash. Then the propellant caught, and the truck tore itself apart from the inside, throwing burning fragments the length of the column. The fourth struck a Grad carrier. The rockets didn't go all at once. They cooked off one after another, each ignition spraying propellant and fire across the span in a ragged, rolling burn. The fifth hit the drone support truck at the back. FPV drones, lithium batteries, generator fuel, and set off a chemical fire that would outlast everything around it. 5 hits, 5 vehicles, under 30 seconds, start to finish. And the column was packed too tight for it to stop there. The heat alone did the rest. 2 tankers that were never touched, sitting 30 feet from the burning ones, caught fire on their own within a minute and a half, cooked off by radiant heat. Fragments from the detonating ammunition punched into fuel and propellant in vehicles further down the line. The fire walked from chassis to chassis, tanker to shell truck to tanker, until the center of the span was a single unbroken sheet of burning fuel and detonating ammunition. 5 hits became 10 fires. The bridge was already gone beneath them, and the trucks that had rerouted here to stay safe were now the fuel feeding the largest fire in northern Crimea that night. By the time the fires burned down, 2 crossings were gone. Chonhar dropped into the water hours earlier. Armiansk, now a span buried under the wreckage of the column that had trusted it. Somewhere around 10 trucks burned out in the center of the bridge. Fuel, 152mm shells, Grad rockets, and the drone support gear that kept a whole sector's operators supplied. That was a week of one sector's logistics, gone in half a minute. But the trucks that burned were not the real loss. Behind them, back down the approach, roughly 40 vehicles sat untouched and completely stranded. No bridge ahead, no room to turn. Ammunition still cooking off in front of them, keeping any recovery crew at a distance. Those 40 trucks were intact, fully loaded, and worth nothing to anyone. They had fuel that couldn't move and shells that couldn't be delivered, parked on a road that no longer led anywhere. And that is the part worth sitting with. Ukraine did not win this by destroying air defense. The Pantsir fired accurately. The Tor cycled under pressure and scored clean kills. The jammer even knocked a drone out of the sky. None of it was weak, and none of it mattered, because the defense was built to protect one target at a time, and Ukraine handed it 2 in the same 90 seconds, then made sure the second one couldn't move. The bridge was never really the target. The method was, break the short road and the traffic doesn't stop. It concentrates onto the one road left in exactly the place you're already aiming. Every remaining crossing between Crimea and the southern front now sits inside the same strike range that reached both of these. The peninsula still has roads. It has fewer of them, and each one is now a place where a column can be made to gather and wait for its turn. You don't have to hit everything. You only have to decide where everything will have to go, and be there first. If breakdowns like this are what you're here for, subscribe and turn on the bell. There's a new one every week. And here's the question I'll leave you with. When a layered air defense is forced to choose between the bridge and the convoy sitting on top of it, is that a failure of the system or a failure of everyone who planned the route? Tell me in the comments.